what is coming up on Tuesday. It is going to be the ceremonial induction of Josephine Baker into the Pantheon. And so we started down here just below, we are just below the Moulin Rouge. And this is a spot, I think we have most, in case anybody else pops in, we'll let you guys in. But we are on the Rue Pierre Fontaine, which I loved the name of the street, who is named after, because it's named after an architect who was an architect under Napoleon. And he did a lot of work on, of course, the Louvre, my favorite place. So I'm always excited if it's anybody that's associated with the Louvre. Get a couple more people coming in. So just as a reminder for new people coming in, you want to make sure that you pin Kate French onto your screen so you see the image of from her feed, and then you still hear my audio. Thank you guys all for joining us. So today, where we are starting, this is number 40 at number Rue Pierre Fontaine, and this is the site of the former club Chez Josephine that Josephine Baker opened in 1926. It opened on December 14th, 1926. And it was only open for 2 years, but it was here at this location. She had arrived in Paris just right before that, and by the year before that, 1925. And then she opened up this club of her own, and it was called just Chez Josephine. And so now it's called Le Carousel. It went to, it was only her. She only had it as a club for 2 years. And then it has changed over time. They actually were trying to save it as a historic spot. And then the only thing they were actually able to do is to get a plaque there. So that plaque was just added there not that long ago. But they changed the facade. If you look on Google Earth, which is always fun to do, if you look up this exact location, 40 Rue Pierre Fontaine, there was a period of time that went through a very ugly facade. And so when this place, Le Carousel, reopened it is a bar now. It's a rather popular bar at night. They put it back to closer to the original facade of what it looked like a little bit more when she actually had it. So that's kind of nice that they did that. You can see that plaque there up there in the left-hand corner of the building. But she would come here, she would, perform on stage in Paris on all the big stages. And then she'd come in here, roll in here at about midnight. And then just keep the party going. And just about everybody in Paris at that time was there. You would see Edith Piaf there, Jean Cocteau. You would see many of the expats, the American expats that were in Paris at the time. They would all make their way up here to Montmartre, to this spot. And so definitely go online and go on Google Earth and check out. There was a few unfortunate years of what the front of this facade looked like. It was not great. But it is, they do apparently have some mentions of her on the menu in there, which is a nice little homage to her. And as we know, she is getting inducted into the Pantheon on Tuesday morning. It is a very high honor. She's the first American to be inducted, even though she would consider herself more French, even though she was born in America. And she's only the 6th woman, and she's the first African-American woman. So it's a pretty amazing honor. It's interesting that they're kind of keeping it buried in all the stories. Everything that I've read is that her body's actually not going. She was buried in Monaco, and her family would not release her body to be moved. So her body, for her family's wishes, is staying in Monaco. But they are. Watch it on Tuesday morning. It's on at about 8:30 a.m. I believe. on the West Coast time. Usually can watch these feeds easily online. If I find a link, I will definitely post it in on my Facebook and on my Instagram stories, so you can watch it. It's always really moving. It's always a really fantastic thing to watch. But in her coffin, they are going to have some dirt from the 4 places: St. Louis, where she was born, from Paris, of course, from her chateau down in the Dordogne, and then also some from Monaco. So that is what is going to be interred into the coffin that is going to go into the Pantheon. And if you, they've been getting it set up for over a week, because there will be music played, or casket will be carried up the Rue Soufflot. And it's going to be there's always a really moving ceremonies to watch. So check it out online. I'm sure if you miss it live, there will be videos saved that you could then watch later. But it's going to be really interesting. And I have been yesterday and today, in the next few days, I'm posting a bunch of info on my Instagram about her, because she was a pretty amazing woman. And then also we did a podcast last year, I think it was episode 65, that you could listen to her whole life story. So it is interesting that she left the US and she came back. But she was really upset with how the racism at the time that was happening, and she would not perform on stages that were segregated. If the audience was segregated, she would not perform. And at one point she left the US and renounced her citizenship. But a lot of a lot of the American media is kind of forgetting that. And she did sing a song that was about her 2 loves, and it was, a lot of people think that was actually about Paris and the US, but it was actually about Paris and Africa. And she had just returned from Africa doing a tour there. But she was an amazing woman, what she did for the resistance, what she did during World War II, what she also did about adopting 12 different children, what she called the Rainbow Tribe, to show people that everybody could live together from different places. She was an amazing, amazing woman. So check out the podcast episode we did about her. Thank you, Chrissy, for jumping in there and sharing how to get this. So we are, of course, now this needs no introduction. The Moulin Rouge, of course, down here at the base of Montmartre. So this is a Pigalle area, and this is, of course, the Moulin Rouge, which is happily reopened now. Most of these places just reopened in the last few months. They were late to reopen after everything else did in May. But the Moulin Rouge is reopened. It opened in 1889. It was the same year as the Eiffel Tower. So 1889 was a big year. And it was opened by Charles Didier and Joseph Olivet. And they decided that they wanted to have a dance club that everybody could go, that was happy and free. And this was 1889. So this was the height of the Belle Epoque. Shout out to Jenny. The Belle Epoque, where everything was beautiful and happy. And it was after the siege of Paris, but it was before, of course, World War I. So it was this period in Paris that was just, everything was beautiful and wonderful and amazing and happy. So it was a really great time to be in Paris. At the time, this was basically the home of all the artists that were up here in Montmartre, and everybody would come here late at night. The show would be at like 10 p.m. and people would come here, and it was mostly men that would come here, because it was the first time that people would see, like in public, like women's legs. And then they, of course, we all know how they would lift up their skirts as they're doing the can. But this was a big thing, because right before that, in the 1860s, is when Manet, of course, completely shocked all of Paris at the Salon with, the nakedness of Olympia and Déjeuner sur l'herbe. And so this was still a very repressed time. And so the Belle Epoque ushered a lot of that in to, everybody was just like, ooh, what's all this? So, they would all come to the Moulin Rouge to check everybody out, check the ladies out. And of course, our Toulouse-Lautrec would be there. Toulouse-Lautrec did a poster for the club, and basically overnight became, everybody knew him. The city of Paris would have his posters, that he did, that now we would do anything, those things are worth a fortune, and it's Toulouse-Lautrec. We would love to have one. And they would just be, hundreds of them placed all over the city on, poles and walls. And then the famous dancer, Jean Avril, where he would paint her as well, and her jerky, crazy dance moves. Oh, look, we already have some Christmas trees. Kate, have you spotted any of the red flocked Christmas trees that I'm dying to have?
No.
Oh,
they're really late putting up all the Christmas stuff here.
Oh, the red flocked Christmas trees, I have seen those. I saw one actually 2 years ago after Christmas on the side of the sidewalk, waiting to get picked up by the garbage guy, and I was dying. I was like, I need that. Here's your little Moulin Rouge gift store. The Moulin Rouge is the #1 place in the world for the consumption of champagne. Every single night they go through like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bottles. It's also because their tickets, there's the VIP ticket that comes with a bottle of champagne, but it's all a half bottle. So I'm really wondering, I need to dig into those statistics to see what exactly, when they say a bottle, if it means a little bottle, then, that's half as much. But of course, the wonderful Moulin Rouge takes up a lot of this area. There was a fire there in 1915 that destroyed almost all of it. The windmill had to be rebuilt and put back together, but now there's a little bar up there. I don't know if it's open in the winter months, it's so cold, but I know Kate, you've been up there before.
Yeah, I think it closes in October, I think. Yeah. I don't know whether that was a COVID thing or whether that's a normal thing, but I would highly recommend. It's really affordable and really lovely, very chilled out,
and sit right up there underneath the windmill,
literally right next to the windmill. Yeah. And but of course, it's not gimmicky at all. It's really nice bar.
Oh, good. Well, and you could take make a dent into that record of champagne bottles. But of course, speaking of windmills, we have the Café du Moulin, which is, of course, everybody knows, have seen and a fan of Amélie. This is the Amélie Café, it's probably better known as. And this is, of course, where she works in the adorable movie. And so it is a little bit different. The first time I went in there, I was like, wait a minute. And it was purchased right after the movie. It's I'm sure for a lot of money, somebody sold it, and they probably capitalized on the fame from the movie. And when it was purchased by the new owner, he ended up actually taking the little cigarette booth out of it that was so famous in the movie, that kind of stretched there closer to the window. But you could go in there now. There's a huge picture of her in the back of Amélie. But the owner is very smart. They stand there at the door, and basically, if you want to come in there and you could see, and you want to, take pictures and hang out around there, they kind of usher you to a table and encourage you to buy something. So they're very, very smart to do that.
Again, would recommend. Really good food, not very expensive.
It is, and they're always really, really nice there. They're
lovely in there. Yeah, it's actually not. You get a few people coming in for photos, but it's actually not very touristy. I'd say it's quite authentic.
It is actually kind of surprising, because you would think you'd have a lot more. Yeah, so if you're trying to see that, find Kate French, and then you pin her onto the screen. In the top right hand corner of her little window, there's a little blue button there, I guess you could call it, and you just right click on that and hit pin. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad, you just double click her image and you get her to stay on there. And we're walking up the Rue Lepic right now. So we're heading up Montmartre, of course. There's the most delicious chocolate store right there, à la Mère de Famille. There's quite a few of them around the city, of course, but the very first one was on the Rue de Faubourg Montmartre. And it was opened in 1761 by Pierre Jean Bernard, who sold it in 1791 to Jean-Marie Bradot. It stayed in that family for 100 years. And then in 1895, Georges Lecour bought it. He ended up selling it to one of his workers in 1931, and it's been in the same family since then. The chocolate is so delicious. This is where I always get my grandma her marzipan. She loves chocolate covered marzipan, and I think when she and my grandfather went to Paris, chocolate covered marzipan was on every other store corner. Now it is not as easy to find. So I always go in there, but they have the most delicious chocolate. It's à la mère de famille. And there's quite a few of them. There's one over in Odeon, really close to Saint-Sulpice. The original store is at Rue de Faubourg Montmartre, but it's delicious chocolate. One day they gave me a sample of it as I was buying stuff for my grandma. And then ever since then, I always have to get a little for myself too. It's so good. And they have the marzipan. They also have these little bears. They look kind of like a gummy bear, but they're marshmallow covered in chocolate. My grandma also loves those. Yes, definitely. You definitely want to go there. It's delicious. And we have some Christmas lights. We're going to walk up to, there's a little Christmas market here coming up. And then we're going to take you up to the base of Sacré-Cœur. And the next 2 weeks, we're going to bring you even more Christmas every Sunday. Next Sunday, will be the right bank. And we're going to go to Galerie Lafayette and go see the tree and all of the amazing windows outside. And we thank everybody for being here. We really appreciate it. And we, of course, are happy to bring these to you free, but we also would, if you wanted to spare a little tip for us to keep this project going, we would appreciate it. And that you could do it through Venmo or PayPal. I just put the two words together. And it's Claudine@ClaudineHemingway.com for both of those. And this is, of course, the Rue des Abbesses. The Rue des Abbesses, it was named after the former abbey that was here. The abbey covered most of the hill up here going up towards Sacré-Cœur. Of course, Sacré-Cœur, the church, is practically brand new. It was built in the late 1800s, beginning of the 1900s. It wasn't even consecrated until 1919. So, it's practically brand new here in Paris. But the Rue des Abbesses, it dates back to 1133 when there was actually an abbey here under Louis VI. He was known as Louis the Fat, the poor guy. But it was and then before that, there was a chapel here in the 7th century. It stood until 1096 when the Saint Martin des Champs Priory came over here. Louis VI, his wife, Adelaide of Savoy, was she was very religious. And so she basically convinced her husband to kick the seminary out and put in an abbess. So it was basically kick the guys out, move all the nuns in. So, and they came over here, and during this time, so over the years, at one point, Henry II the king would be the person that would pick who the main, head of the nun was, the abbess. And he picked Catherine de Clermont, who was also the niece of his lover, Diane de Poitiers. So in 1559, a huge fire basically destroyed the abbey and a lot of the buildings up here on Montmartre. They had it rebuilt. And under Henry IV, when he was involved in one of the many sieges that he was taking care of, they had a base up here near the abbey, and that is where he met Sister Claude. She was the 37th abbess of the abbey, in 1590, when he was living up here, he started an affair with Claude. So, you know, it was apparently a little looser times back then as far as what the nuns could do. So he had this affair with Claude that, and she thought for sure that he was going to marry her, because at the same time he was trying to get his marriage to Marguerite de Bourbon. He was trying to get that actually annulled. And so she thought for sure that they were going to get married, but then he ended up leaving. He ended up meeting Gabrielle d'Estrées, who was Claude's cousin, and he fell in love with her. And of course, that's who he was going to marry until sadly Gabrielle died days before their wedding in Paris. She's also the one of the very famous photo in the Louvre of the sister pinching her sister Gabrielle's nipple, which is supposedly a sign of pregnancy. But I've asked many of my friends that they've never had anybody do that when they were pregnant. Of course, a beautiful view, Kate, of this perfect little street here in Paris. Le Vrai Paris. And of course, I also have to say a very happy birthday to mama of Kate, Karen. Today's her birthday. And somebody else's birthday is this week, Miss Kate.
Coming to me.
On the 30th is Kate's birthday. So early happy birthday. It's very busy up here today.
It's busier than I've ever seen it these last 2 weekends.
I saw an article in the French paper about the Marais, that the people in the Marais were getting very upset, saying it's not this isn't Disneyland, because it's just getting filled with people right now.
It's mad. I mean, I would say that, but Montmartre kind of is Disney.
Yeah. Definitely numbers are back.
Oh yeah.
Tourists. There's this great church that we're going to see up here on the side, the Saint Jean de Montmartre, which is, you know, when it comes to the churches in Paris, it looks a little bit more modern compared to our Gothic churches that we love. This is in 1892, Antoine de Bordeaux, who studied under Viollet-le-Duc, who of course redid Notre Dame. He wanted to actually create a church that was built out of concrete. And so so that was of course quite controversial at the time, like how in the world would you do something out of concrete? So the abbot of the church, he was very frustrated with the elders and decided to go ahead and say, yes, let's go do this. Let's build this church. And it ended up being that the Pope came through and actually decommissioned the church as being an official church. It is all done inside of it. Of course, it has the iron. It was created with iron, just like the Saint Clotilde was that we saw a couple weeks ago. And then it's covered with the brick. It's a really fascinating church. Inside is always completely quiet when you go in, so definitely go check that out when you're up there.
Apart from tonight, apparently.
Oh, apparently it looks like it.
Yeah, I think there's a concert or something going on.
Yeah,
Completely
it's very bright in there.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting church. The stained glass in it is really gorgeous. They have a bunch of information about the history of the church inside, which is really cool. And then, of course, right behind us, this is a Place des Abbesses, which has the fantastic metro sign we'll see here in a minute. But this is the adorable little Montmartre Christmas village. It's everything in there is 100% French. So it's all French products, and they're selling only French products, which is a big thing that they redid this year. Because as we mentioned last weekend, the guy that used to do the huge fair on the Champs-Élysées, which is now in the Tuileries, it was getting kind of junky, I guess you could say, and it was just all of this, made in China products and a bunch of other stuff. And so his agreement with the city was that they would have only vendors selling French products. So you could go in here and see a little bit of everything. You could get all sorts of great food. They also have one up here in January around the 25th, which is the fete of the Coquille Saint-Jacques, which is the scallops. And this was the first and last place, I will say, that I tried andouille sausage. And if you know what that is, it might be your first and last time you try it too. It's quite the French people really like it. Uh-oh, the faux got a little weird. French people love it, but it's very much of an acquired taste. Our gimbal today is acting a little crazy.
Sorry, the gimbal just died.
Yeah.
We're back.
It's gorgeous up here. I love this little village. That's probably why it's a little busy right now too. And of course we have, this is one of the original Hector Guimond's metro stand. A lot of the other ones you see in the city are all copies, but this is one of the original ones that was in the city that got moved up here. And so it's really fun to see that. It was originally at the Hotel de Ville, and in 1974, they moved it up here to this one, and it's one of the only original ones in the whole city.
I think it's just, one of two, right?
Yeah, one of two. Yeah.
Can't remember where the second one is.
I think the second one is right by Parc Monceau.
Ah, okay.
I think, if I remember correctly. But they're so great to see. And this is just a small one. I think there's only like 20 booths here. This is a smaller Christmas. And so you have everything. You could come here and get some saucisson and some other delicious warm cheese. And this, of course, back here, it's probably already closed, but this is where the I Love You wall is.
I don't know if you guys can get a little peek. It's kind of dark.
Yeah, it's kind of dark. It's right there below that white building, the square Jean Rictou. And the I Love You wall there is right there.
It's very easy to find from the metro.
It is very easy to get there. It's only been there since 2000. I mean, it feels like it's always been a part of there. But I love this story because it was this guy named Frederic Baron. He would walk the streets of Paris asking everybody how they say I love you, and in whatever language. And so he made all these notes of how to say. I think we go down the one below this. Is this Yvonne Le Tac?
Ah, sorry.
And it's a straight shot. And so he would ask everybody how you say I love you, and he would write in all these this notebook. And so he collected like hundreds and hundreds of them. And so he would show friends of his that were artists. And so these artists would say, you should do something with these. So he worked with this graphic artist. When you go to it and you see the shape of the shape of the tiles are exactly the same size as his notebook. So they took all of these, they put it all together. It's in 250 languages, 311 phrases. And so there's 612 royal blue enamel tiles. And then they had it put up in 2000. And he's published some books where it says all this, but it's just a really sweet thing because I love that, the going up there to see I love you in all these languages, but the fact that, he stopped people on the streets of Paris and said, how do you say I love you in your language? Is pretty great. And this little street that we're on, it used to be named the Rue Marie Antoinette, and it's not that Marie Antoinette. It was actually the wife of the gentleman that owned a bunch of land here at the time. Oh, there was some more chocolate. Oh, some diamonds in there. Jewelry better than chocolate. My grandma would agree to that too. She would definitely say jewelry. She would rather have jewelry over chocolate. But they named the street after his wife, Marie Antoinette. Oh, there's a Brez Cafe, the greatest of all crepes in Paris. There's one in Odeon. There's quite a few. There's one in the Marais. They have the jambon truffe crepe or galette, that is ham that has truffles in it, and then it has comté cheese and an egg, and it's the most delicious thing in the world. But this little street is there's coming up here on the right, there's a church that just blends in here with the wall that you don't really, you know, most people wouldn't even, it doesn't really stick out unless you're right on top of it. But in the story of Saint Denis, who's, I love the story of Saint Denis, the martyred saint that we all know is usually seen depicted holding his head. He was, of course, tried and convicted, and he was made a martyr because they chopped his head off, he and his two companions, his two fellow saints. And so he was actually, it was actually right here, it was right here in this spot. It's now this crypt that's dedicated to Saint Denis. It's, you could only go into it on Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. is the only time it's open. So definitely make a note of that when you go to Paris, if you want to go see this. It's not, you know, grand and amazing and beautiful inside, but it is pretty cool because it was on this spot is actually where he was beheaded. A lot of stories, they'll say, you know, it was at the top of Montmartre. We're not very far. You'll see how close we are to Sacré-Cœur in a bit, but it was actually on this spot. This is where his head was chopped off, and he picked it up and started walking. It was at that square that's behind Montmartre that we went to a few weeks ago. That's where he stopped and rinsed off his head, and then kept on going until he got to what we know as Saint Denis today. And then that's where he dropped and died. And then Saint Geneviève was the one who decided to have a church built for him there. The church now, the Basilique Saint Denis, is different from the one obviously that she created in like the year 400, but the sentiment is still there. And now the Basilique Saint Denis is dedicated to the kings and queens of France, and that is where their tombs are. Most of them are empty because during the revolution they were all basically attacked and emptied. But the amazing Alexandre Lenotre went up there and saved the tombs, moved them down to where we know as the École des Beaux-Arts, and then they ended up being able to move them back. So it's quite a, the church part of it is actually very small, and it was discovered because somebody went down in 1611. They were doing some building there, and they dug through and found a staircase that led to the crypt. And then there was a plaque down there noting that that was the spot where he was beheaded. Oh, little duckies. We're helping you do your Christmas shopping here. Hi, Will. You just need to find Kate French's feed and double click on it. Thank you, Chrissy.
There's a whole cherub store.
And a cherub. So we have ducks and angels and very sweet.
And then yeah, that's ducks.
Oh, Chrissy, you've been inside that one. I'm sure we're gonna run into even more people here in a few minutes as we are heading towards the bottom of Sacré-Cœur. It was it's pretty cold there today, isn't it, Kate?
It's been really, really freezing. Like yesterday was the coldest day we've had all year, I would say. It felt like the coldest day. It's a really, really, really cold wind.
I was watching the Paris Saint-Germain game, which started at 4 a.m. Pacific, and during the game, it started snowing. Like,
oh, really?
Big, huge. It was playing. They were playing down in Saint Etienne, so south, but
yeah,
it was huge snowflakes. It was actually really fun.
Yeah, it felt like it was cold enough to snow yesterday.
Yeah.
And the rain was like icy cold.
Ugh.
Also, guys, if you're ever up this way, this ice cream shop is the best thing in the world.
The best.
It's so good. It's Lebanese, and they like it's orange flour, and then they roll it in pistachio.
Oh,
fresh pistachios. It's incredible.
Yum. And we're heading down here. We are going to, in a minute, we are going to come up to a very tiny park next to the steps in the funicular that is dedicated to Suzanne Valadon, Place Suzanne Valadon, who was a fantastic artist. She was known first as the model for Renoir, and then she became an artist in her own right. Oh, was that an angel on the wall there?
No, sadly, it's something else.
It's my favorite, Jean de Castelbajac, that always paints the angels. It's his birthday today too.
Oh,
this is
happy birthday to him.
Yes, Place Suzanne Valadon, which she is awesome. I think she was actually one of the very first podcast episodes we did, either the first or the second. I think it was we did Dalida and Suzanne Valadon. I think Suzanne might have been first. She was very interesting. And if you go to the Musée de Montmartre there, which is where she also had her studio, inside there, you could still see her atelier with her paint palettes and everything. It's really, really cool to see.
And this is the site most recently where Keanu Reeves was
filming
yes. John Wick for the last couple of weeks. So he was on my street for a good few weeks, which was not terrible.
Not terrible. I wonder if they're still filming in Paris.
They've shut the park.
Oh no. Can we get, maybe we go up the steps by the carousel.
Yeah, we'll go up the steps. Yeah, let me just check and see.
Might be able to go up the other side through the center. And there has been some changes in this last week with some of the COVID stuff. There is different now, as of December 15th, if you're over 65, you have to have proof of having your third dose. If you're over 50, that is on January 15th. It looks like it looks pretty quiet up there.
It's totally shut, I'm afraid. But I'll go up the steps.
I didn't think this part ever closed.
No. Yeah, I thought it was only during lockdown. But apparently.
We'll go up the other steps, and if you need to take little breaks.
Oh, it's fine.
It's
the
a lot
joys of
steps.
living in Montmartre. You get used to the steps quite quickly. Because I know if I want to come home from anywhere,
you gotta walk up.
Steps.
Sometimes you can take like the streets and wind your way up there. It's just gonna take longer.
Gotta say, I do that a lot.
Yes, I've done that because you just have steps and then you have more steps, and then you walk a few feet, then more steps.
Or you can take our favorite guy, the funicular.
Oh yeah.
Which is quite pricey for the journey time, but
yes, it's very short. Isn't it just, I think it's isn't it just the metro ticket?
Yeah. So it's like €1.40 or something.
Yeah. Just to go a little bit.
For like 30 seconds.
But we were gonna go down at the base of that where the gate was. Is the Place Saint-Pierre, and then there's also the Square Louis Michel, and Louis Michel, it was renamed to that in 2004. She was a pretty amazing woman that was involved in the Commune. She ended up being killed, but she was a huge fighter. It used to be named for Paul Willette, but then they found out how anti-Semitic he was, so they kicked his name off of it and changed it to Louis Michel. So these things changed. A lot of the places change. There's streets. I have this really amazing book that's from the 1850s, and it is it actually has the names of streets, so you can look up the street names, and you'll a lot of times it'll say like, just like the one we were on, Lutac, it was, at one point it was named Rue Antoinette, then it was, before that Rue Marie Antoinette, and it'll have all the years. It's really, really fascinating to see some of them where, they keep changing the names over time. It's pretty cool. It's really interesting. And then it'll have I have another one that'll tell you, like, oh, there's this building here and it has this amazing railing, and it has the staircase inside this building. And they're all books that are like, from the 1850s or before. How are you doing, Kate?
Getting there. We're nearly there.
No hurry.
Más barato, ¿eh? Hoy lo voy a echar barato.
Sí, muy
I'd be like, we have 2 minutes to get to the top. Run. No. No. It is quite the trek. And then there's the people like that lady. It's like, no, it's like driving. The up lane is on the right.
Yeah.
The down lane is on the left. Stick to the rules, people.
Yeah, a lot of people don't seem to cotton on to that one.
No.
Or they just don't care.
Yeah. The other thing is when you're going on escalators, if you're going to just stand on the escalator, stay to the right. You leave the left open for the people that are in a hurry. And sometimes in the Louvre, I teach people that the hard way. If I say pardon and they 3 times and they don't move, or they get a little push. Push to the left, push to the right.
Fairly simple, isn't it, really?
It is very simple. And it is funny because you learn very quickly the first time you come to Europe that lines kind of also are like, they don't really mean as much. So, a lot of times people just, French people, European people, they just go into the line wherever they want. Even, Americans, we're very much like stand in the line. But then there's the rules like the escalator and the steps where like, the French people, this is the way you do it. Yeah, the escalator rule, I think, Joelle, in the States, they don't know that. Or like, those things I love in the airport, like the walkways. I love those things, especially when you have bags and you're exhausted. And then the people that just like do the same thing, they just kind of stand blocking the whole thing. And you're like, no, those aren't actually, those are like moving walkways. Those aren't stop and stand.
Everyone needs to come to England for their training. We love a rule and regulation.
There's lots of, yeah, exactly.
This is not true what you're saying about Europe. I live in US and my impression is the opposite about Americans. So
Well,
yeah, I dealt with that even yesterday. So it depends on people and people. Some are more civilized than others.
that is true. That is definitely true. What a great view we have tonight. Now the sunsetting is like at 4:50, I think. You can see the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
The Ferris wheel, the Tuileries.
Yeah, Ferris wheel just here. And then Montparnasse Tower.
Oh yes, you can't ever escape that darn thing.
Yep. Then we've got the Pompidou. You can just about see it.
Oh yeah.
And Notre Dame. There.
Right there, you could kind of see her lit up.
Yeah.
They are, they're redoing the whole outside of Montparnasse Tower. It's going to cost, I'm sure, billions of dollars. But because everybody hates it so much, they think it's so ugly. They're doing this huge project that they're going to basically change the way the outside of it looks before the Olympics. And it's like, I've seen pictures of it online. It does look a little bit better, but it's also like, you can't put lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, so you could just knock it down.
Yeah, it just sticks out. I have pictures my grandpa took, I think in 1972, when it was first starting to be built, and he called it the Awful Tower back then, and that's what people still call it, the Awful Tower. There's the Eiffel and the Awful. And we have a beautiful little night up there, nice and clear. And of course, beautiful Sacré-Cœur with the wonderful limestone. The stone that's used on it is a special stone that when it gets wet, and then the sun hits it and dries it, it constantly keeps it clean. But if you walk to the right, because I went in there with our friend Giuseppe and he took me into some of the back hidden places that you can't go into Sacré-Cœur because he works there. The whole right-hand side of Sacré-Cœur is like black and dirty, but I think it's because it depends on the time of the day. And so I don't think the sun hits that side as much, or maybe the water doesn't get there. I don't know, but it's really ugly. You might be able to go to the right and see. I love the Christmas trees. They don't have lights on them though? I
no,
guess
they
they're what
haven't
plug them
finished
in, huh?
decorating.
It's so funny, the Christmas trees, like you don't have Christmas tree stands. So when you buy a Christmas tree in France, you just get it and they just basically like nail it to the base, like two pieces, like two 2x4s, like, you know, nailed together is the word I'm looking for, and like an X, and then they just put the tree on it. So you'll have your whole tree up for like a month and it's never getting any water. So I think I could bring tomato soup cans and tree stands and be a billionaire.
Europe doesn't, yes, Europe doesn't have water for their tree, and they also decorate their trees a lot later than us. We decorated on Thanksgiving. And
oh, right. Yeah, that's true. But it's still lovely. And I'm going to find one of those red flock trees. I tried to see if you could find some in the States and you can't.
It's another good business.
I know. Red flock trees. I will find my friend Landon's keeping an eye out for them for me and get a picture
Just
of
see
it.
the Eiffel.
Oh, we
Just
can
about.
see it. Oh, I was gonna say it's not sparkling.
Just about.
And all those darn locks.
Yeah, they've all moved up here since being kicked off the design.
Yes. Oh, Chrissy, a flock tree. Oh, maybe I remember having these. We'd get them when we were kids. So every other year we'd get a flock tree. So it's basically I don't even know what it is, that it's like they put it in this thing and they blow. So it basically looks like a tree completely covered in snow. And so it looks like, I mean, basically you don't really see even much of like the branches. They're just, everything's like encased in this white, whatever it is. And it's pretty there. So there's red ones like that. But I don't think it's really a big thing. When I was a kid, I remember you'd see them all the time, but I don't know if anybody still even does them or if you could even find them. But it used to be a big thing. But they were kind of a mess. But it would be like, you know, it was pretty cool. I've also seen where you could do it yourself. I can't remember, where did I see that? Oh, I think it was there was a story that the President Biden would actually do it on his own. He'd create like this solution with like what was it, like soap, you know, like soap flakes, you know, for washing your clothes, and then he would like spray the trees with some water or something, and then they would throw this on there, so it made it look like there was always snow on it. But the flock trees are like, it's basically the whole entire thing is covered. Christmas in Paris is pretty great. The other good little trick about that is they will leave their decorations and everything up until like Valentine's Day. I think a couple years ago I was there in 2020. I was there till Valentine's Day, and Christmas was still up all over the place. So if you could still enjoy Paris, or you could still enjoy your home at Christmas and then head over there like I am 4 weeks from today. And I will bring you some more after Christmas and New Year's Eve from Paris. But it is pretty great. So you could get there afterwards and still see lots and lots of Christmas. But it's always fun. And then down the little side streets But we have to let Kate go because she has to go, and she's gonna probably walk us right to where her mother is.
I was going to show you, I don't know what time we're on, so I was going to show you in lieu of the Sacré-Cœur Park.
Oh
I
yes,
was going to
the
show you
little park.
Place de Terre.
Oh, Place de Terre. Yeah, let's see how crazy this is. It's a little crazy back there.
They've turned the lights off on the street. They were on
Oh.
today.
They're like, it's like a bar. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Party's over, lights are out. But it's just like a little village up here. This is what's so great about Montmartre. It was once a village outside of the city where the artists went to go because it was so much cheaper. And now it's still a little bit of a village. The street coming up here on the right where that sign is sticking out, my grandpa had a picture of that street sign, and I went and recreated it on a trip, and they used to have a one of the invaders above that sign. But I was funny because I was just like, there's nothing really significant about that street, but my grandpa had a picture of the corner and the street sign. Oh, and I love this church. So we'll go through. I'm sure Place de Terre is just filled with people getting all of their, which is good. I mean, I think, oh, look, they don't have the middle of it set up anymore.
No, it's actually okay this evening. It's very busy today, but
I'm surprised they haven't put those all the for extra seating up.
They just took them down 2 weeks ago. Yeah, don't know why, but it's very nice not to have them.
Yeah. Well, I know that they had to take down all of the extra seating in the parking spaces all over the city. Those had to come down, I think, at like the end of October or maybe beginning of November.
Yeah, it's much calmer without.
Yes. But it's so neat up here. Behind, in that corner behind you was where the first Hotel de Ville of Montmartre was, just kind of hidden over there in the corner. There's should be a little, I think there's a little sign, but then all the artists up here.
There's a sign about the commune.
Yeah. Those artists, it's really neat. So the artists, they share their spaces. And so there's 3 of them that shares one spot. And then they rotate during the week. Like, one works Monday, Tuesdays, the other one Wednesday, Thursdays, the other one weekends or whatever, however they split it up. But there's 3 artists for each spot that they each get. And they move around, and there's a long waiting list because they have to basically, show, prove that they're an artist and show their talent. It's not just anybody. You're not going to see Kate's an amazing artist. There's no way anytime soon I'm going to be sitting there trying to, if you want a stick figure, I'm your girl.
Not sure I'd be getting a pass anytime soon either, but
But it is pretty cool because I'm sure that when the tourists are high, they could probably make a lot of money. It's the same with the Boucanese, used to have a very long waiting list because it cost like 100 euros for a year to hold the spot. And now they're actually opening it up to people because of COVID, there's been some turnover. And so they're actually opening up some of the spots for the Boucanese. You have to be a French citizen. You don't have to be a French national, but you have to be a French citizen. But you could go down and set up your own Boucanese. I couldn't do it. It's hard enough for me to part with books. I'd be like, oh no, don't buy this one.
Just be selling them to each other all day.
I know, exactly. It'd be more of a lending library.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let Kate go so she could go get her mom and take her out to dinner, and a great big happy birthday to Karen and Kate this week. 2 days away, right?
It is. Thank you. So
And so thank you everybody for joining us. And next Sunday, we will come and we will bring you the Christmas on the right bank, including the Gallery Lafayette. So hopefully we'll start inside the Gallery Lafayette. If we'll check to make sure that the feed works. If not, we'll be outside of it as well, and just kind of exploring around there on the right bank. So definitely come and check it out. And if you, we appreciate you guys coming here. And if you want to, we would be more than happy to accept a little tip from you to keep this little project going and bring you some more great places every Sunday from Paris. So thank you so much. And thank you, Chrissy, for jumping in and helping. But we will see you guys all next Sunday. And also make sure you follow me on Instagram, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge. On Facebook, it's Bleu Blanc Rouge. And I will be sharing some more stuff about Josephine Baker. I'm doing some stuff for the French Embassy in America. I'm doing some stuff for them too with them. And so definitely follow along. And keep an eye on all of the great stuff about Josephine Baker. And when I find a link to see it live, I will share that. So you can see that on Tuesday. It is at 5:30 in Paris, so 8:30 on the West Coast and 11:30 on the East Coast to watch a feed of it. I'm sure it's gonna be pretty fantastic. So thank you guys all so much, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you next Sunday. Oh. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kate. Have fun.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.